Ayo, mulai.
Я буду бачити свій текст.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to visiting lecture today. For everyone who has entered the room, we are about to begin. So please have a seat and make yourself comfortable. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Honorable Olha Miliutina, PhD from Hlukhiv National Pedagogical University from Ukraine, and a very warm welcome to the all participants and students from STEKOM University. Is it a pleasure to have all of you on this memorable occasion today? And I would like to thank God for gathering us here in a visiting lecture program regarding linguistic interference in communication. Before we begin, please allow me to read our agenda this afternoon. First, there will be start class presentation by Olha Miliutina, PhD. And finally, there will be a question and answer session after the presentation. Continue with brief photo session at the end. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, we will start for this event today, delivered by Olha Miliutina, PhD. Yeah, for Dr. Olha, the time is yours. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. We have morning. Well, today we are going to speak about linguistic interference in communication. Well, my name is Olha Miliutina. Well, it is a kind of communication interference. Well, and please, if you will have some questions, any questions, I'm waiting them in the chat. Yeah? Well, let's start. When communicating in a foreign language, people may experience certain difficulties in understanding each other. These problems are caused by different native and foreign language systems. For both of us, for you and for me, English is a foreign language, which is significantly different from the Ukrainian, and I think from Indonesian too. Therefore, in the process of communication, interference of our native language with English may occur. The degree of this interference will largely depend on the level of proficiency in a foreign language. In our case, it is English. There are also other factors affecting the process of communication in a foreign language, which we will try to deal with today. But first, let's define what communication is. Well, linguists define communication as a process by which people exchange information or express their thoughts and feelings. You can see some other definitions of this process on the slide. These definitions are given in modern English dictionaries. There are different types of human communication. According to the style of its realization, it can be direct or indirect. According to the role of participants, active or passive. As to the mode of communication, it can be verbal or non-verbal. We should know that number of participants of communication may also be different. It can vary from individual, intrapersonal or interpersonal to social, group, public, mass, etc. Discussing the way we communicate, we distinguish between verbal and non-verbal communication. And whereas non-verbal communication is the act of transmitting information without using verbs, you see, with the help of fingers, heads, some other features, verbal communication is a linguistic change of ideas, and it is a fundamental means of interpersonal understanding. People use communication to express themselves in many ways during discussions, speeches, everyday conversations, etc. Being a functional aspect of language contacts, verbal communication is also a mirror of intercultural contacts. Potential manifestation of the mutual contact of cultures and of their subsequent conflict or interaction can, in the language sphere, be realized as a change in one or both or all of the participating contact languages, and is often called by scholars linguistic interference. All processes of mutual interaction of languages occur according to certain laws. To illustrate these laws, the famous linguist Ferdinand de Saussure compared the language system to a game of chess. In his opinion, language, like chess, is a system that has its own arrangement. He believed that a comparison with chess would bring out the point, because in chess, the external or random, occasional is relatively easily separated from the internal or regular. Using the example given by the scientist, we can easily understand what is external and what is internal. He said that the fact that the game had passed from Persia to Europe was external, against that everything having to do with its system and rules is internal. That is, using ivory chessmen is external, because it has nothing to do with its system and rules. And vice versa, if we change the number of the chessmen, this change has a profound effect on the grammar of the game. This is sure emphasized that it is always necessary to distinguish between the internal and the external. In each specific case, the nature of the phenomenon can be determined by applying the rule. Everything that changes the system in one way or another is internal. So, linguistic interaction should not destroy the internal of the systems of contact languages. This means that it is necessary to introduce sounds, words, or phrases from language 1 into speech of the language 2 very carefully, without destroying the grammatical basis of the recipient language, its vocabulary, pronunciation, and spelling features in the process of language contact. The term language contact was proposed by the American linguist Uriel Weinreich in his book Languages in Contact in 1953. He states that two or more languages are in contact if they are used alternately by the same person. The language using individuals are thus the locus of the contact. The practice of alternative using two languages is called bilingualism, and the persons involved in this process are called bilingual. According to Weinreich, cases of deviation from the norms of any of languages that occur in the speech of bilinguals as a result of their acquaintance with more than one language are referred to as interference phenomena. The term interference comes from two Latin verbs. Inter, that means between, mutually, and parents, parentis, that means the one who carries. This term is widely used in various scientific fields, such as physics, radio, sports, medicine, psychology, in different branches of linguistics, and so on. In modern linguistics, there are different interpretations of these concepts. Well, you can see them on the slide. And modern linguists agree with Uriel Weinreich and consider as interference any language changes caused by the interpenetration or overlapping of two languages. Others define interference as a semantic or structural change in the form of deviation from the norms of language 1 under the influence of language 2. And some researchers characterize interference exclusively as the process of learning another language, limiting its existence in the communication act. And influential changes in language norms during communication are interpreted by them as borrowings. We agree that in the process of interference, there is involuntary, spontaneous transfer of language 1 system features to the system of language 2. The result of such transfer is manifested in the appearance of deviations from the norms in the system of one language under the influence of another language. What are the factors that cause the language interference? Linguists emphasize the following four, and the major one is a person's linguistic background. A speaker's first language knowledge can influence how they perceive, process, and produce speech in language 2. For example, if a speaker's first language is highly inflected, they may transfer the inflection patterns of their native language to the second language, which can result in grammatical errors. The process of learning a second language can also cause linguistic interference. Learning a new language, students are often exposed to new sounds, grammars, vocabulary, and cultural norms, which can be challenging. This challenge of learning a new language can result in the transfer of linguistic elements from L1 to L2, which can affect the accuracy and the fluency of the language being learned. Bilingualism can also change language interference. Bilinguals often have to switch between languages, and the switch can result in the transfer of linguistic elements from one language to the other. For example, a bilingual individual may use the vocabulary of language 1 when speaking language 2, or they may use grammar patterns from language 2 when speaking language 1. Well, cross-cultural communication is also the factor that causes language interference. People communicating across linguistic and cultural boundaries may have different expectations about communication. For example, people from different cultures may have different preferences for politeness in education, which can lead to misunderstandings and misinterpretations. There are at least 2 preconditions of linguistic interference. First and foremost, it is influence of language 1 on language 2. Well, you see, a person's speaking skills in language 1 can, to some extent, affect the speaking skills in language 2, resulting in the transfer of linguistic elements from the first or native language to the second one. For example, a speaker's language 1 skill of pronouncing voiced and devoiced consonants can influence their pronunciation and skills in using a noun, and the skill of using a noun as a predicate or adding plural inflections can affect grammatical norms, which can result in speech errors in language 2. The influence of the first language can vary depending on the similarity of languages, as well as the speaker's proficiency in both languages. The speaker's proficiency, language proficiency, is the next precondition of linguistic interference. As their proficiency in language 2 improves, they are less likely to transfer elements of the first language to the second one. Well, levels of linguistic interference. Well, as you see, linguistic interference can be observed at absolutely all language levels. Well, you see, it may be syntax, pronunciation, grammar, semantics, vocabulary, structure, morphology, culture, spelling, and and it takes also many forms. We'll characterize some of them now. Spelling interference, or it may be called orthography interference. Well, it deals with letters. Well, considering interference of the Ukrainian language spelling on the English language, we must admit that in the Ukrainian language, almost every letter corresponds to a certain sound. But there is no complete correspondence between sounds and letters. The Ukrainian alphabet has 33 letters that represent 38 sounds. 10 vowel letters make up 6 vowel sounds, and 22 consonant letters make up 32 consonant sounds. The number of consonant sounds in the Ukrainian language is more than the number of consonant letters because of parallel pairs of hard and soft sounds. Sorry. Well, of hard and soft sounds, which are denoted by the same letter. One letter in Ukrainian can define 2 sounds, soft and hard. For example, b, b, d, d, but they are defined by the same letter. Well, we have also one special letter, the so-called softness sign, which is used to denote the softness of consonants in writing, in some cases. Yes. Well, in the English spelling system has only 26 letters that can be used for representing 44 sounds. That is, there are not enough letters in the English alphabet to denote all the sounds that need to be represented in spelling. But, as they say, there are hundreds of spelling alternatives that can be used to represent these 44 English phonemes or sounds. For example, sound k, as in kite, has 9 representations in spelling, and the sound su, as in so, and sh, as in sha, have 8 representations each. A long vowel E, as in B, has 11 alternative variants of spelling. Short E, as in egg, has 10, but diphthongs A, baby, has 11 representations, and I, as in fly, has 10 spelling variants. Well, so it can be said that difficulties of Ukrainian speakers in learning English are related to the fact that the confusing and the irregular spelling provides clear guidelines for its pronunciation. Well, you see how the word is written is spelled in English and how it can be written according to the Ukrainian norms of pronunciation. Well, I think that Indonesian learners have the same problems. Am I right? Well, pronunciation or phonetic interference. It refers to the transfer of sound, stress, and intonation patterns from language 1 to language 2. This type of interference is caused by, first of all, different number of sounds. We have mentioned 20 English vowel sounds versus 10 Ukrainian, and 24 English consonants versus 32 Ukrainian ones. Well, difference between English and Ukrainian vowel systems, you can see on the next slide, the number of vowel sounds. Well, the next cause is unfamiliar sounds, unfamiliar for native language speakers. Well, for example, it is difficult for Ukrainians to differentiate between long and short vowel sounds, and they can pronounce long E as a short E, long O as a short O, or U as an U. Well, and there are some unfamiliar consonants which are absent in our language, in the native language. Well, for Ukrainians, sounds, dental sounds, the, so labial W and nasal are unfamiliar. It is difficult to pronounce them. And sometimes, especially at the beginner's level, these sounds can be changed with known for native speakers. And in the word with, it can be pronounced as with. The English sound so is often changed to su or fu. Well, because it is more convenient to pronounce thank you instead of thank you, thought instead of thought, free instead of three, and so on. Well, one more problem for Ukrainians is unpronounceable letters. We have no unpronounceable letters in our words. That's why we can read or pronounce the words no as kno, hour as hour, comb as comb, subtle as subtle, knife as knife, often as often, and so on, and so on. Well, on this slide, as I have told you, you can see a comparative table of vowel sounds in the Ukrainian and English languages. And you see that Ukrainians who only have 6 vowel monophthongs find it really difficult to distinguish 20 English vowel sounds, which include 3 long monophthongs, 7 short monophthongs, 2 diphthongoids, and 8 diphthongs. It is really difficult for our people to differentiate between these 20 vowel sounds. Well, another problem is the stress interference of the Ukrainian language. A speaker have some troubles with the stress patterns of words in the second language because they have been influenced by the pronunciation patterns of their first language. For example, they may say industry instead of industry, botany instead of botany, technology instead of technology, comfortable instead of comfortable, due to the stress patterns in their own language, Well, under the influence of the Ukrainian language, it is more convenient for the speaker to devoice voiced sounds at the end of the word. Well, we can say bat instead of bed, or pig instead of pig, but in English, these devoiced sounds can affect the semantics of the words. Well, and you see at the slide difference in meanings of these words with voiced and devoiced sounds at the end of the word. Well, vocabulary interference. Vocabulary interference, you see this picture well, and as Weinreich says, that lexical interference can occur when one vocabulary interferes with another. This type of interference can result in the use of the wrong word or the use of word in the wrong context. Well, lexical units subjected to interference can be the so-called false friends of the translator. Well, this is the most common group of interfered words because they are similar in spelling but have different meanings. You see, the word actual in English means real, full of facts, and in Ukrainian it means topical, important for this time. The word accurate means exact in English and need in Ukrainian. Well, magazine is a periodical publication in English and a shop in Ukrainian. Technique in English means technology, method, and machinery in Ukrainian. And what about mayor? It is the elected head of a city, of a town, or other municipality in English, and in Ukrainian, it is major, a military rank. It is a military rank. The next problem is associated with the transfer of lexical combinability norms from language 1 to language 2. Possible lexical errors under the influence of interference here could be: we arrived on the station instead of we arrived to the station. Ukrainians can say apply for the work instead apply for the job. Hurt my emotions instead hurt my feelings. Saying her truth instead of telling her the truth. So instead telling her the truth. Well, speaking of lexical interference, we cannot fail to mention the transfer of lexical units from the English language to the native one. Such interference is the cause of active, is probably not the cause, is caused by active changes that have recently taken place in the vocabulary of other languages, in particular Ukrainian. I must say that a significant number of actually Ukrainian words have already been replaced by their English equivalents. The example of such words are creative, latent, variable, verbal, communication, reception, intention, transfer, using, and so on and so forth. There are many, there are very many words borrowed from the English into Ukrainian, which have the real Ukrainian equivalents. And now Ukrainian linguists are fighting for the restoration of the Ukrainian vocabulary. Well, the next level of language linguistic interference is grammatical interference, which covers morphological interference and syntactic interference. Morphological interference refers to transfer in using parts of speech and grammatical patterns. Syntactic interference refers to the transfer of sentence structure patterns from language 1 to language 2. This type of interference can result in grammatical errors or difficulties in constructing sentences in the second language. Grammatical interference of the Ukrainian language in English can be observed in the omission of the verb to be in simple sentences. You see, Ukrainians can say I actress instead of I am an actress. Or he handsome boy instead of he is a handsome boy. Well, the next cause is the omission of an auxiliary verb in complex verb forms. It is due to the absence of complex verb forms in the Ukrainian language. Well, we can say, I done it, instead of I have done it. Or she listening to music, instead of she is or was listening to it. Well, the same is with the incorrect using of verb forms. Well, we have no regular and irregular verbs. That is why all our verb forms are built according to the same rules. And it is regular for Ukrainians to say, I have bring the ashtray, instead of I have brought the ashtray. Well, omission of verb flexions. Omission of verbal flexions. Well, he was asleep quietly at night instead of he was sleeping quietly at night. He speaks English well instead of he speaks English well. Well is also regular for Ukrainian speakers. Well, for example, a Ukrainian speaker may also use the past simple instead of past progressive or past perfect. Well, because as I have told, we have only one form, one past, one future, and one present. We have 3 tense forms instead of 16 in the English language. Well, and he played football the whole evening yesterday is correct for Ukrainians. They may use it instead of he was playing football the whole evening yesterday, which is correct for the English speakers. Well, he also can say, well, another problem, a great difficulty for Ukrainian learners is sequence of tenses in the English language. There is no such a phenomenon in Ukrainian as sequence of tenses. We can use past in the main clause and future in the subordinate clause. And it is correct for Ukrainian, for the Ukrainian language. That's why he said that he knows the laws of the country is correct for Ukrainian speaking. Instead of correct for English, he said that he knew the laws of the country. Well, considering the syntactic interference, it must be said that English and Ukrainian languages belong to different types of languages. English is an analytical one, and Ukrainian is a syntactic. This means that the connection of words in a sentence is indicated in different ways. In analytical languages, syntax and meaning are mostly formed by the word order, by order of words, and with the help of auxiliary verbs. In contrast, a syntactic language forms its sentences using inflections. That's why the word order in syntactical languages is free. Well, and it is difficult for Ukrainians who are used to the free word order in a sentence to adapt to the constant subject-verb-object structure. And on the slide, you can see the correct sentence in English and the variants that can be used by the Ukrainian speakers. Well, you see that this subject may be in the first place, in the sentence, in the middle, and at the end, just as the predicate also can be at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of the sentence. So, therefore, it is important for the second language learners to be aware of the potential for linguistic interference and to take steps to overcome it in order to improve their communication skills and increase their ability to communicate effectively with others in the second language. This may include studying the grammar and vocabulary of the second language, practicing speaking and listening skills, and seeking feedback from the native speakers of the second language. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for Dr. Olha. And then we will go to the next session for time question and answer session. For our audience, if you wanna ask question, you can raise your hand or you can write in the room chat.
Well, thank you for your questions. Well, I shall see them. Participants who want to ask questions. Please write it.
Oh, we have audience raised hand from Mr. Adi Nugroho. Yeah, from Mr. Adi, the time is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the time. I would like to ask you about the Ukrainian language. I'm sorry, I can't write on the chat because I'm talking about the tone. Is there any tone language in the Ukraine? Tone language is just like in the Thailand, they use ka, 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 ka. It's a different meaning. It's tonic language. Just like Chinese, they also have a tonic language. On the Arabic, also have a tonic language. Visit on the Ukrainian have a tonic language too.
Well, sorry, but what is the phase difference for maximum constructive interference between two waves of the same frequency? I think that it deals more with physics than with linguistics. Well, William, well, what is the previous question? Well, thank. Please, can you repeat it?
Okay.
And write in the chat because I can't. See.
Okay. It's about tonal language. Tonal language. In the some country, just like Thailand language, just like Arabic language, there is a
Well,
tonal.
right, please, because it's very poor, very poor.
Okay, okay. I try to write.
Listening, I couldn't listen to you.
Okay. Okay, I already write in the room chat. Sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, I already write in the room chat.
Well, it is not, well, these waves of tonal, these waves in tonals are not characteristic for our language. That's why it seems to me that it is in phonetic. Well, it gives to phonetic interference, and this tonal intonation, well, is different in English and Thailand. Well, and sometimes, yes, it also may be different, and it is not understandable for native language speakers. Well, as I have told, the intonation interference between English and Ukrainian also exists, and sometimes it deals with what it leads to misunderstanding, the misinterpretation of intonation patterns. Well, if we have to ask something, we not always use raising tone. Well, sometimes it is the falling tone, which can be misunderstood by English speakers.
Yes. Okay, I understand.
Well, in Ukrainian we can ask, "Це зробила мама." Well, it is the affirmative sentence. "Це зробила мама." Well, it is an interrogative sentence, but in Ukrainian, in English, we must ask, was it done by mother? Well, especially the raising tone. Well, yes, of course. Well, we have some gender. We have feminitives in our language, and the verbs in our language, the verbs are differentiating according to gender. According to gender, yes, we have.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, I understand. Okay, thank you.
And improve by learning. So what should we do to improve what steps are taken to decrease the grammatical interference, because as we know, learning grammar can be bored for some people. Thank you. Well, but what should you do to learn grammar? To learn grammar patterns, probably to find some, you have to find cases for communication, for communicating with English-speaking people. Well, and it is, for me, it is, they are the best teachers for us. Well,
thank you for answering. And then the next question, this is from Mr. Faiz.
Why should interference be implemented, and why can semantic interference appear in communication? Well, as I have told, semantic interference, thank you for your questions, but I have told about semantic interference when I told you about lexical interference. Well, sometimes words which are used in the native language have another difference, another meaning, another semantics in the recipient language. And that's why we must try to avoid this semantic interference and be more careful in using the language to vocabulary and lexics. Mhm. What is the what is the phase? Well, about the first question, what is the phase difference for maximum constructive interference between two waves of the same frequency? Please, I don't understand your question correctly. Please, да, please say it according to the linguistics norms. Mhm.
Okay, thank you. And then the next question from Miss Febriana. Is it answering or no, Miss? Already answer or no?
Mhm. I have just answered the question. Mhm.
Mhm.
About the vocabulary. Well, have you any other questions?
This is from Mr. Faiz. Is already answer or no? May I know? What is the best difference for maximum?
Maximum.
Okay. I
Well, from the point of linguistics, I can't understand this question about waves. It seems to me that it is more characteristics for physics than for linguistics. Well, and that's why, well, I shall try it to answer during our future meetings, probably. Well, thank you.
thank you.
Well,
I think we don't have no question again from audience. May I continue to the next session? Time for take a picture for documentation.
mhm. Mhm.
Okay, for this session will be handled with Miss Febri. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, Miss Novita. For those who haven't activated the camera, you can activate the camera first so we can take photos together. Oke, bagi peserta yang belum mengaktifkan kameranya, bisa diaktifkan terlebih dahulu karena kita akan mendokumentasi acara di siang hari ini. Oke, let me count from 1, 2, oke, 3. Once again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. I will return the event to Miss Novita.
Interference. Great.
Thank you. Finally, we come to the end of visiting lecture today. We would like to say thanks again for our speaker for their
Well, thank you very much
information.
for attention. Well, I'll be glad to see you next time. Well,
Yeah, thank you for sharing your knowledge, Miss Dr. Olha. Yeah. Also, I would like to thanks for all participants for attending this class today and making this even more interesting. At least we hope to have more collaboration in the future with uni with Ukraine. The visiting lecture for today and here we hope to see you soon. Thank you and have a nice day. Goodbye.
goodbye.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for Dr. Olha. Nice to see you.
Ya, bagi peserta yang belum absen, bisa absen terlebih dahulu. Link absen sudah tertera di kolom chat. Sekali lagi, bagi yang belum absen, bisa absen terlebih dahulu sebelum saya akhiri. Oke, saya kira cukup. I think that's enough for today's event. Thank you. Good afternoon. Have a good rest. Bye-bye.